Welcome to the Veterans Day special. My name is Kelli Melissa Reinhardt, and I am your host, and we are so excited for you to be here. If you haven't ever watched my show is the Make Mental Health Matter show, and I air on the Achieve TV channel right here on E360 TV. But today's special is all about honoring veterans, those that have served in the military, and really having an open, transparent, authentic conversation all around how it has been, whether it is in the military, outside of the military, and really incorporating the things as we talk about with mental health, suicide prevention and awareness, and really just understanding how it can affect people in general. Because the whole purpose of my show is to talk about mental health, suicide prevention, substance abuse, all the things that nobody wants to talk about. But it is really important to have these open conversations. And that is what all my guests are going to do today. And we're going to go Hollywood Square style and really give you a chance as the audience to listen to the stories and know that, one, first and foremost, you're not alone. Whatever you might be going through, whatever experience that you have been through, you really truly are not alone. And there are people in this world that are out here and want to help. The people that have been through maybe a similar experience, but understanding that my experience is going to be very different from your experience and vice versa. Just because we go through something similar doesn't mean that we're going to take out the same experience. So knowing that there are people in this world that really truly care and understand and want to be a part of the conversation, that's the whole goal. So thank you all for being here, watching this special. And without further ado, I'm going to bring up all my guests all at the same time, and you will get a chance to hear and know a little bit more about the guests. The cool part about this special is that if you happen to be watching it on YouTube or the Facebook page, you can type in comments. You can actually ask questions. This is live. All of us are here. So if you happen to have or hear something that you have a question about, you can type it in. You just have to we're running off of StreamYard. So you'll just give StreamYard permission to show the comment, and I will pop it up on the screen. So that's one of the cool parts about having this live and having it streamed. So without further ado, I am going to bring up my guests for today. We have JJ, Evan, Tammy, Robert, Allison, Gabriel, and Kim keeps popping in and out. Yay, we got her. Cool. All right. So some of you are muted, but I will unmute. Well, y'all have to unmute yourself, apparently. So there we go. Yay. All right. So I'm going to give everybody a chance to just share a little bit about your journey in military and outside of military. You can share your story. You can share whatever is really coming to your heart today to share first and foremost. So I'm going to start I don't know which way I'm going to go. Actually, I'm going to go to JJ first because he's over on this side of me. So
great. The first one. Love it. So, hello, everybody. My name is JJ Hardy. I own a business called Victory Leadership Coaching. I consider myself a warrior leadership coach because it's a new program that I have. I've written a couple books, but I did serve in the military as well. I retired from the U.S. Army in 2018. I was a warrant officer for a few years before I retired, and that was my ending rank. I did transition over to the dark side, as we all like to say. Had a mental health journey. I did suffer from and do suffer from post-traumatic stress, and it's been kind of a long journey. As far as sharing my story, just a small part of that journey is a lot of a group therapy, as far as just, talking to other people that have had similar experiences, and doing that group thing for quite a few years. It's kind of gotten me to a really, really good place. So, that is me. That's what I do. And hopefully that was a good introduction.
Absolutely. And JJ has actually been on the show in the past. So if you want to learn even more about his story, you can go back and watch his episode, and we'll probably bring him back sooner than later too. So I'm going to go to Evan next.
What up, guys? I'm Evan, aka the Resilient Bartender. So I did 10 and a half years as a sharpshooter for the Air Force, did 4 deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, and then just worked out of Minot, North Dakota, where my career died. Essentially, what happened for me was I worked so hard in the military and trying to achieve certain things as I was getting closer to being part of like the SWAT side of the Air Force up at Minot, that my body shut down and I developed type 1 diabetes. At the same time, going through military life and military family life, my wife at the time had cheated on me, and I went to this huge depression, and I lost my wings. I couldn't fly or shoot anymore because of my condition and whatnot. And so as they were trying to medically retire me out of the military, I ended up getting into resilience training and learning about resiliency and how it's a new program in the Air Force. And they wanted to adopt what the Army was doing. And so I got to become a master resilient trainer about working with certain skills and whatnot to get through depression and other things within that nature, and then develop the actual program itself of resiliency and how to become more resilient and how to do it as a more of a protective measure before troops go overseas and whatnot and before they see combat. So I was able to do some of that stuff and develop it at Minot. And then it's funny because then once I got out of the military, ended up back into bartending and whatnot, and I own my own private bartending business where we literally spread the word of resiliency within the service industry. So not only just military and whatnot, but how addiction and service industry people fight and deal with certain things going on in their lives and whatnot, whether it's with addiction, with debt, the whole entire mindset of the service industry of what they can't get through or get past, especially if there's 30 people yelling at you at the bar. How do you get through those times? And so that's how I kind of been growing my brand and my persona of being the resilient bartender and helping those people try to get through those tough times so we don't think it's the end of the world. How can we move on forward to something a lot better using the skills of resiliency and those type of things. So that's me.
Amazing. Thank you. And a fun fact about Evan is he used to be one of our board members for Make Mental Health Matter, formerly known as BCC Evolution. So, and we used to bartend back in the day together. So, you know, I've known Evan for quite some time, and I know
you bartended your wedding.
Yes. So, I'm going to go to Allison next. Oh, you had to unmute yourself, Allison. Sorry.
There we go. Sorry about that. It's an honor to be here, and it's really nice to meet everybody except Robert and Kelly and Gabriel, who I know. I am a military family member, a licensed professional counselor, and a nonprofit founder. My brother's about to medically retire from the Army after 20-something years, 3 deployments in Iraq as a helicopter pilot. Also a warrant officer, JJ, in the beginning, and then medevac. And so he's back in Colorado Springs. I'm in the Denver area. I worked as a licensed professional counselor in the Department of Veterans Affairs for 6 years, the Portland VA Medical Center in Portland, Oregon, and also out in the Bend VA Clinic, the CBOC in Central Oregon. And then got very disillusioned and also vicariously traumatized by working in the VA system, and ended up having a vision, a young man who ended up kind of blowing out in the psych ward and had a vision for a more holistic model of care. So that became the Central Oregon Veterans Ranch, which is currently in its 9th year of operation. So it's a peer support based model. So it uses agriculture and peer support to engage veterans in community. And that's how I know Robert, and later on connected with Gabriel. So that's a little bit about me.
Amazing. And Allison and Robert actually have been on the show in the past too. So make sure you go check out their episode. And I brought them back for this one too. So I'm gonna go to Robert, and you just make sure you unmute yourself.
I did this time. Thanks, Kelly. A little bit about me is U.S. Army 08 to 2010, where I got injured, busted my knee out, ended up taking a medical at that time. I fought for almost 11 years with PTSD really bad, several suicide attempts until 21. I ended up and got into my head and managed to misfire, and I'm still here today. Since that day, I found quite a few things, one being Allison out the Central Oregon Veterans Ranch, where I started to get myself back in order. It really helped me with just getting my life back. I had no life. I was a drunk. I was mean. I already lost the first wife, was on my second wife, getting ready to lose it. It was a real bad part of my time, but I've managed to this day is I'm now working with a lot of people, helping people that went through some of the similar stories I did, even though they're always different. Everybody's got something different. But I live now by going back and helping other people. One thing is Veterans Ranch has really helped me a lot. So I've actually been doing work for them, even though I moved to Kansas now. I go back and do work for them and on a consultant, and I'm any veteran or anything, I'm willing to go and consult on their ag programs. That's what I grew up doing. And so I'm actually trying to start a ranch here in Wichita area. That's very similar to the Central Oregon Veterans Ranch. And that's my ultimate dream right now. I want to give back for what I've gotten, because I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for all these programs. So that's a little bit about me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And I know we'll talk more about all the things that have helped, including the ranch. So thank you. Next, I'm going to go to Tammy.
Hello, everybody. So glad to be here, especially spending my Veterans Day with a bunch of veterans is always fun. So I am a Marine Corps veteran. I went in right out of high school at 17 years old. And it was during the time of Desert Storm. My unit was one of the first to go, but they went so quickly, they said no women in combat. And so it was really interesting to be on that end of things. And by the time they started to send women, my unit was coming back. And so I'll never forget that day, standing there and watching all my coworkers and friends and everybody leave and not contributing. And so it wasn't until I got much older did I really recognize that I was actually kind of holding a little bit of shame around that, which, really seems silly. But I finally just gave myself grace for it. And after the Marine Corps, I got out. I got a job working for an engineering firm. I became a software developer, and I worked there for 20 years. And about a year before I left, one of my coworkers died by suicide, and another close friend passed away from ovarian cancer. And so I just went through this, life is short. I really want to help people. And so I shocked everybody because I'm so positive and, a good team member, but I'm just like, I want to make a change. And so I left. And so for the last 10 years, I've had my own business. And, but my journey on the veteran side when I moved to Denver after the Marine Corps, there isn't a big Marine Corps base here. And so I really kind of got away from that side of myself. And I think part of it too, you're a little bit of burnout, you're ready for a change. You got out of the military. And then in 2006, I ran the Marine Corps Marathon and my heart just sang. Like I forgot how much a part of me that really was. And so after that, I got involved with a lot of veterans charities. And, that's when Iraq and Afghanistan were really heated up. And so I got involved with a charity called World Team Sports, and they do inclusive events. And so people that have some kind of injury can participate in an activity along with their, able-bodied family members. And so for 11 years, we did an adventure race here in Colorado, and it was teams of 5. It was designed by a professional adventure racer, and one person had to be a paraplegic, another person had to be an amputee, and then 3 able bodies. And a lot of times those able-bodied athletes were corporate sponsors who had never done anything like that. And we didn't do anything special to get the injured through. We were just a team, and you had to get your team through. And so to watch the synergy between somebody who's injured, they don't want to let you down. A lot of them were combat veterans. And then people that were able but had never done that, they're struggling and they don't want to let them down. And so it was really a beautiful thing. And then to sit around the campfire and hear the stories, I just realized that even though I hadn't served in combat and that shame that I had felt, I realized that my actual gift was to be able to give them a safe space for them to share. And so to be able to sit there and let them know that they're seen, and just that friendly smile goes a long way. And so I've seen a lot of things and contributed in a lot of different ways. And it's been so rewarding. And so I just make it a point to continue to give back.
Amazing. And thank you for being here. I know this is the first time you and I are meeting, so
Yes.
which is so fun. I love having people who I haven't met before, on the show. So
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. I'm gonna go to Gabriel next.
Okay, hello everybody.
Hi.
Well, I am my wife and 5 children live in Bremerton, Washington, which is a Navy town. And I'm a licensed mental health counselor in private practice. So about half of my practice is with the community care network. And so then the other half are with local. I enlisted in the Pennsylvania Army National Guard into the Military Police Corps in 2004. And I was in the Army until 2010. Tammy, what you were saying about shame resonates a lot with me. I would say probably 2 things that motivate my work today. The first, my desperation for a sense of purpose and meaning in life. And the second would be trying to alleviate my own shame. I often say I missed 2 deployments and I only deployed once. I say I only deployed once because I feel like I didn't do enough. Therefore, I don't really belong as a veteran. Which is kind of that deep feeling of a lack of belonging, reinforces my shame. And then that kind of in my work as a mental health counselor.
Well, thank you for sharing. And it's lovely to meet you also. First time we're meeting, and I know Allison recommended that you come on too. So I'm excited. I'm gonna go to Kim next.
Hi everyone. I'm Kim Mosley. I served in the Army back in 11 and 12. I got kicked out because I decided to take a stand against sexual harassment within the military. And that was something that I chose not to stand silent about. And the moment that I said something, my first sergeant kicked me out, had my orders ready for me to leave. And it was all while we were getting ready for Iraq. And my whole entire battalion, when I got back home, was gone. Half my unit completely gone. So that shame, that embarrassment, that regret, I carried that with me for about a good decade afterwards. And then I realized I didn't have to, because what's meant for me will come back to me, will happen to me and for me. You can't cry over something that passed you by. That whole entire experience was to help us grow, to help us, get into the people that we're meant to be and that we are today. It helped us, form that survival system, that fight or flight stance that we had way back when. It made us become grateful and humble people. And I'm forever grateful for the experiences that I went through, because now I can help others with their traumas as a neuro-linguistic practitioner, neuro-linguistic programming practitioner, and also as a skincare specialist. There's a lot of things that people fail to realize the older that they get, especially when it comes to self-care and putting yourself first. You can't be there for your team if you don't think of how you can keep yourself safe, how you can not have to call out for someone to cover you because you chose to put yourself in a really messed up predicament, You have to think about being the best showing up for your team, so that way your team can depend on you and you can be there to cover someone, God forbid anything happens. And those experiences I took with me and I made it into something beautiful. I educate people on a daily basis. I'm always motivating, the person next to me, because you could be having a really bad day and just a simple, act of kindness can make someone's day and just change their thought process and the decisions that they choose to make, you know. And I'm just grateful to be here. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your stories. I resonate with every single one of you on multiple levels. I truly do. And happy freaking Veterans Day, man.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining also. And I know this, like, the whole my show at least is really like opening up that conversation that nobody wants to have, right? So we may, and this is for all of you watching or maybe listening, I just want you to know that we may have some tough conversations here, and there might be some things that are said that you maybe don't agree with or you do agree with, right? But we all are humans, we all have our own experience, and really being able to have open, honest, transparent conversations is how we start to break down the stigma, how we start to like really ask questions of ourselves and others and really start healing together, right? So there may be some things that come up for you, but just know we're going to have some pretty awesome conversations as we go along. This is for, well, we have about an hour and a half left. So see, it goes really, really quick. I'll tell you a little bit about, so I am not and have never been in the military, but my dad, he was in the National Guard. So I remember growing up, and he was Gulf War. They were in Germany. They were stationed in Germany. For me, I was really, really young when he went overseas, and all I remember is that he used to send me chocolates and candy, and that I got to like follow along where he was at in all the different places that they kept stationing them. And that was the part that I remember. And then my dad would go to guard, and he went to Panama, and they helped build roads. And there was a lot of cool things that I felt like he did military wise. My husband, his dad is, he was in the Air Force. He was actually an engineer and worked on the stealth fighter. So back in the day, it was very confidential. Nobody knew about it. And there's still secrets that they keep to this day. We went to one of the anniversaries last year, and they had all the pictures up on the wall. There's still some things that like paper or newspaper clippings that aren't being said. And I was like asking questions, trying to get more information as related to some of the things. But even my husband, he's like, we had no idea where he was stationed, what was happening. He said he was in this city, but like he was actually in this country, and none of us even knew like where he was at. It was such like an undercover thing back in the day. So all of this, I have had experience with family members in the military, and the camaraderie, the community, right? Like it's such a strong community, no matter what branch you're in or where you served. But I know that everybody has such a different experience, and that's why I love that we have some that are prior, some that are more recent, and then we have the family member aspect. So and I intentionally women and men, right? Like having a little bit of different perspective, which I think is like the best part of all of this. So I want to talk a little bit about like some of you, well, most of you brought up just the different aspects of what have helped you in the past and now as you're navigating life outside of the military. And that transition period is often the one that I hear might be the hardest, right? Like transitioning out of military into civilian life, oftentimes I hear that there's just not enough resources. There's not enough help as related. And so you can take this either way, and anybody at any point in time can chime in. But what is your thought process around the transition, or what has been the thing that really truly, like Robert talked about, the ranch, and what has been the most beneficial for you in that transition? And again, whomever wants to chime in can.
I'll go ahead and chime in.
Okay, we'll go Robert and then Tammy.
Okay. My transition was horrible. When I got out in 2010, after my med board, it was pretty much got thrown out there. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know anything. I knew I was hurting. I was dealing with an injury that the military wouldn't take care of. They just kept saying it wasn't. They couldn't do the surgery because I would never go back to running or anything. I'd never wear battle gear again. So my transition was horrible. And for a long time, I started going to the VA throwing medications at me. That's all I did. I was a walking zombie for about 5 years. They had me on 6 different medicines. Never really got down to why I was feeling the way I was, which is a really hard one for me because I didn't understand. I just knew I didn't feel right. I knew I didn't want to be here anymore, but I didn't understand why. And when I found the ranch in 21, like I said, it was right after a suicide attempt where it was my birthday, got really drunk and didn't want to be here anymore. And my gun misfired, of all things. Don't know why. Never had it happen before, but I'm still here, and to the grace of God, I am. But I ended up finding the one person at a healthcare for community. It wasn't even VA. At the time, I had stopped using VA because I was just tired of being on all the medicines. But I found the ranch and went out there the first day, and I've been in agriculture my whole life. I farmed as a kid. So it's what I love to do. And I got there, and it was just like everybody just talking to you. Didn't ask me what I had been doing, nothing. Just general conversations. And threw me right into there of they found out I did ag and started asking me questions. And it really went from there where people really just started asking me about ag and my experience and everything. And they started helping me with getting to the next step of trying to figure out what's going on. And they helped me with going to Save a Warrior, which really got deep down and figured out why I was feeling the way I did. I hadn't ever admitted I got sexually raped in the military. I was treated really bad when I got injured because I was no longer eligible to do what they wanted. And I was always trying to push through the pain, and just got worse and worse every time. And then, I got out, same thing, went right into a relationship that was abusive, the whole 9 yards. But finding the ranch, finally going to these programs, opening up, and realizing I wasn't alone. That was my biggest thing. I thought I was alone because I never deployed. Unfortunately, my injury was prior to that. So similar to you, Tammy, I thought I was a piece of crap because of it. I had a lot of bad feelings about it, and getting around people who understood that, what happened is what happened, and we can move past it. We can work on it together. It's a story, but it doesn't define who I am. And that's what I found at the ranch. I found out that it didn't define who I was anymore. And I've really been able to work forward from that point. And I've now gone back to helping the people because that's what keeps me going every day. Helping veterans every day, helping them get past what I got past, and being in a position of feeling better. That's what I've lived for today. And that's truly what's amazing. And a lot of my grace has to go back to the Veterans Ranch. And that's why I'm so particular about wanting to start one here, because I see how much of a loophole we're missing when people are getting out. And I want that to be available to everybody, not just in one area, but to the whole United States. So it's just really important to me going forward.
Yeah. And so I met a woman a couple months ago that they kind of do something similar to the ranch, but it's all around horses and veterans and suicide prevention. And she really told me, just even mental health challenges is that because horses absorb your energy, right? So you have to get really calm and really clear with your intention when you're working with horses, because they will not want to have anything to do with you if you have a bad energy about you. So I didn't know that really. I mean, I guess I've just not had that experience with horses. I've been able to walk up and like touch them, but she's like, yeah, if you have any negative feelings or you have a lot going on, the horse will just go away and reject you. But you really have to like get calm and centered and be able to work with the horses. So I don't know if that's been your experience, and Allison may want to chime in too.
It is. It's actually any animal, any livestock, a cat, whether it's cows, sheep, anything. They feel you struggling. Some will just even come closer. Some will pull away, but when you get that calmness around them, then they're right there next to you, and that feeling of being alone goes away right away. Animals.
Well, go ahead.
Animals have such a sense of what a human's feeling. It's unbelievable, and that's why being around animals to me help. I'm calm. I don't feel anything. I feel normal again. So yeah, I've had that experience very much.
Awesome. I want to say something, and then I want to give it back to Tammy, because I know she was going to say something about transition and getting out. But that's very much an aspect of the Veterans Ranch. And many of the veterans that came to the ranch would say this was the most welcome they felt since they got out of the military. So it's not just a farm, it's really a community, and it's also a sanctuary. So I teach and train, and so I'm supporting veterans like Robert and like Gabriel who want to start a similar model, because it's not just that physical location in Central Oregon. It's a model of care that we think should be implemented around the country. But some of you might be familiar with Thomas Joyner's theory, interpersonal theory of suicide, and lack of sense of belonging and feeling like a burden. And as a clinician working with veterans for 6 years, every day in an office from 8 to 4 with all types of trauma, you start to see patterns. You start to see often also how the medical model is not adequate. Like Robert was saying, that the VA does the best it can, but it's often just pumping people full of meds, and it's not getting to the core issue. And it's also not able to address the real social issues and needs of veterans. So much of the ranch is about that, not feeling like a burden, coming to a community with people that automatically understand you and accept you, and finding that sense of belonging. And I used to say to the veterans that were there, even just your presence has value. Whether you work, whether you do anything on the farm, whether you join a peer support group, just show up and be present. And even if you just want to walk around the property, it's a beautiful 19 acres with incredible views of the Three Sisters Mountains. And also, like Robert was saying about the animals, just being in the presence of animals. And I think what that also does, it allows the veteran to re-experience a sense of peace and calm internally on a regular basis. That's something that's missing, right? Because there can be so much turmoil. And also just, I'll say quickly, in terms of the sense of isolation that so many vets feel. And we all know that when we're alone, our mind is our worst. It can be a prison, right? It's our own mind is our worst enemy. And so when you have post-traumatic stress and you have all the negative thoughts and emotions and feelings, and you're trapped in that. So, and then it can be hard to get out the longer you're in that. And that's what I think the downward spiral leads ultimately to suicide. But if you can force yourself to get out, I know it took Robert a long time to actually get to the ranch, and many veterans would say that, but just the act of physically getting out and then going to a place where you're so welcome, you're so embraced, and you're in a beautiful setting and you're around animals is a transformative experience. And so I think we need more in terms of transition. And I'm curious to hear Tammy's story about transition.
Yeah. So when I got out, I was in for 4 years, and my background was all electronics, and with the military, the training is so intense in such a short amount of time, just because they need to get the most out of you for those 4 years. And so when I got out, all these places that I was applying, they wanted 5 to 8 years experience. And, I tried to explain to them, like, I was much further along than any college student in electronics. And so I was just taking whatever job I could find. I had a job counting baseball cards and, just taking a resistor, put it in a machine, clipping the feet off, and just redundant work. And so I really struggled with my value. And I went through this identity shift. Like, if I'm not a Marine, like, what am I? And, this really cool job to really just trying to do something really basic. And then, so now fast forward all this time and watching friends that have served, 20 plus years, and, they spent their career being in this, fight or flight. My decisions matter, it could impact life or death. And so all of a sudden they're applying for jobs and they're getting things like, you're overqualified, but they don't want that stressful job. They don't want that executive role where now all of a sudden they're still having all that same stress. And so I have such a compassion for that as well. But I think that the identity shift is something that can happen to anybody at any point. Like, I know that when I walked away from my corporate career, I went through that same thing. I was an expert in my field, and now all of a sudden I'm like in this new area that I'm trying to figure things out. And so for me, one of the ways that I get around that is really just leaning on those soft skills, those things that we take for granted, your leadership skills, the way that you think, the way you make decisions, because all that is still the same. And the values and the way you show up and how you treat people, it doesn't matter what role you're doing, and those titles don't matter if you can really lean in on that. And so anytime I see anybody that's really struggling or going through some kind of identity shift, just to remind them like what they stand for and how they could turn those gifts to help others.
Yeah.
So as we're talking about the transition, two of the things that really contribute to the difficulty of the transition is the feelings of shame and guilt and physiological dysregulation. So the first thing that has to be named, this isn't named enough, being in the military is incredibly arousing, like physiologically arousing. Right? I remember basic training being in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and 100 soldiers were standing in line holding M16s with bayonets on the front, and I'm stabbing into a freaking dummy or whatever it was, screaming, what do we scream? Blood, 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 blood makes the green grass grow. Right? The physiological intensity, the arousal of the autonomic nervous system as we're screaming this in unison, the smell of gunpowder, of being at the range all day long. I remember being in Iraq and standing in a catwalk above 150 detained detainees, and having OC spray. And you spray the OC spray, and the smell and the way it burns your eyes, it's incredibly arousing. Then afterwards, you come home and you start to reflect on your experience, and you're like, wow, I kind of felt good spraying those detainees with that OC spray. Like, that felt powerful. It tasted peppery. It burnt my eyes, and I felt good. What do I do with the fact of this arousal and the shame and guilt? I mean, I have to bury it. I can't really stand the fact that I'm like this horrendous of a human being. Then I end up back in society, completely disconnected from other people, and I'm left with feelings of despair. Like, it's never going to get any better. So I've lost belonging. I've lost, I feel like I'm a sense of burden. Then you add despair, things will never get better. And if I have a firearm in my gun case, everything's together to commit suicide. So we have to be able to address like this bind of shame and guilt, arousal, and all the components that come together.
I think it's a lot more than that too. You know, when we're serving on active duty or whatever, we have that sense of serving with a team. I know, Tammy, you alluded to that. But then, you know, we treat each other well. We have all this camaraderie. you have a job and you serve for a long time, you get to be that person that everybody relies on for the job. I mean, my trauma started before the military, but I mean, you have the combat deployments and everything else on top of it. And then when you get ready to transition, all those negative feelings start to come to the surface, because now you're going to be joining a group of people that, gosh, you hope you can find some commonalities with them. And then I moved to Iowa. Where the heck am I going to find another military person in Iowa? So, you know, it was just, there were just so many things that happened in such a short period of time when I transitioned. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate, but you know, the whole, I'm not a subject matter expert anymore. I wasn't a pilot. I was a logistician. So, you know, I was the one of two at whatever large organization that I was a part of, that, you know, people came to me. I didn't have to seek people out to find work. And by the way, usually they were drowning me in work. And then, you know, because I specialized in every mode of transportation, you know, I had to do everything throughout my career. Well, guess what? Come to find out, there's not really a job like that in the civilian workforce. And so what the hell am I going to do with, what the heck am I going to do with that? Sorry, pardon my language. And you know, it's just, same thing. Every job I would apply for, they would say I was overqualified. Well, really, I just wanted to put a little bit of extra money in the savings account so that we could start saving up for when my kids go to college. I didn't care how much I was making. And by the way, who are all of you people to tell me that I can't work somewhere just because my qualifications don't match? Or they're too much. If I want to settle for less, that should be my decision, not yours. You know, there was just so much confusion. And I think it took me close to a year to actually land something. And I'll be honest with you, it wasn't super great. And I didn't stay there very long because the job was ridiculously horrible. I don't know how to go to an interview and try to figure out what the right culture is for me when I go somewhere. I mean, I was told for an entire career, you know, what place I was going to be going, who I was going to be reporting to, and I had to show up and figure it out. It's not that way. So the transition from the military is very, very difficult in a lot of ways. And I did struggle with I didn't get to the point, Robert, where I picked up the weapon, but I thought about it so many times because I figured that would just be easier than dealing with all the disappointment and all of the gosh, I don't even know how to explain it, but it seemed like everything I did, I failed at until I started figuring it out. And then once I figured it out, it was like, oh, I guess, hell, I guess it's not so bad. But it took, to your point, Kelly, you mentioned the right group of people, right? Well, I found that I went to all the counseling. I got drugged up by the VA. I felt that too. And, you know, I found the DAV eventually, and it wasn't the DAV that did it for me. I found the right group of people to start talking to, where, you know, you could have a guy who kicked in doors on a regular basis, blew things up on a regular basis, and then you had a couple guys that might have flown drones and had all kinds of feelings about combat, or somebody who, like me, who was in convoys and may have seen some of the stuff happen, but, you know, you weren't actually the one, you know, dealing with all of the destruction and stuff, and nobody judged each other. And when you find the environment where no one judged each other, everyone knows that we all came from a different environment, but we're experiencing similar feelings, you know, then we just got to talk, and then you became friends, and then you didn't just talk in the group anymore. You started, you know, maybe going outside of that and maybe having lunch or something. I really think that without that, I probably wouldn't have, I don't know how to say it, but maybe jumped out of my funk a little bit.
Nice. And I love this whole conversation, just at least for me. I think it's important that we understand where everybody's coming from, right? And where they've been and where they're going and what they're doing now. We're going to go and we're going to wrap back around and talk a little bit more about this once we get back. But we're going to go to our first quick sponsored break. And then once we get back, we'll talk even more. As a reminder, for those of you that are watching, you can ask questions. So if you happen to be watching on YouTube or on the Facebook page, you can type in your question and I can pop it up on the screen if you have a specific question that comes up as any of the guest speakers are talking. So we'll be right back after this quick sponsored break.
1,917 people die daily from suicide globally.
I lost my middle sister, Carrie, to a completed suicide on February 20th, 2017.
How does Make Mental Health Matter save lives?
Number 1, awareness.
My story, however, it isn't unique. I am a domestic violence survivor and a recovering addict. For 14 years, I was in active addiction. And because of Kelli and the work that she does and the opportunity to have my voice heard, I was able to stay clean and sober and have hit a year. I'm still here. And if it wasn't for Kelli answering my call the day that I thought I was going to take my life.
Number 2, conversation.
I'm curious, and I know that I've heard a lot in the BIPOC community. It is very hush-hush. It's like one of those things that you don't talk about. Like, you literally feel like it's not a conversation you can have. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
First, shout out to Kelli, because I'm glad that she asked the question. I researched you before I went on your show, and I saw how real and authentic you were. And I just appreciate the question, because it is different and we have to have tough, courageous conversations. So yes, I always say I'm a triple diversity threat. I'm a Black woman with multiple disabilities. Now, I'm not really a threat, but to other people, I may be, because people fear the unknown and what they're uncomfortable with.
Number 3, education.
Kelli's passionate commitment to mental health awareness is a beautiful thing. It's clear in her social media posts, it's clear in the resources that she puts together, in the activities that she provides, her collaboration with organizations, and the consistent way that she continues to deliver a message, encouraging people to understand that they can share openly and to break the stigma around mental health. Kelli's topics cover children and adults, talk about things that we can do as a community, things that we can do individually, and her website is packed with information and resources and all kinds of contacts that you can use to reach out, whether you're dealing with something yourself or you're looking to help somebody else who is struggling. I encourage you to check it out.
Are you crypto curious? Maybe it's a little too scary for you to get involved in all this crazy Bitcoin cryptocurrency stuff. Join me, your host, Charlie Stivers of Goose Live. Find us on Achieve TV Thursdays, noon Mountain Time, where we talk all things crypto.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Sevilla, your host of Pivot Now. Join us on E360 TV every Tuesdays, 10 a.m. Pacific Time, 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Pivot Now.
And like that, we're back. If you happen to be just tuning in to this Empowering Hope Veterans Day special, thank you so much for watching. My name is Kelli Melissa Reinhardt. I am your host, and I have all these amazing guests that are here today sharing their journey through their military career and being a veteran and or supporting family members who were military and are now veterans. But we're just having an open, transparent conversation really about stories and knowing that you're not alone, whatever experience you're going through. Before we went on to the break, we were talking about the transition, which is often the biggest thing that I hear about when active military into civilian life, and really how there maybe is not enough resources. But I love how Gabriel talked about how military life is arousing, or it's really invigorating. There's like so much happening. There's so much going on during that time. You're going through boot camp, then you're actually, if you're active in the trenches, wherever you happen to be, right? There's just so much arousal that is happening during that time. And then you make this transition into civilian life where it's like, where do I fit? what job do I get? I'm overqualified now, or I'm underqualified, or maybe I want to go work at McDonald's or have like a career that's brainless that I don't have to like worry too much about. But now I have too many skills. There's just so many things that make that transition. And then maybe you come back and you've lost some of your family, or maybe you had or suffered a trauma, or like Evan talked about, and you have diabetes, or like Kim talked about, you were forced out of your career because you decided to take a stand. There's so many different stories. And then maybe you get medicated, you get over medicated, like Robert talked about, and so many others have, because it's like you're fixing this problem, then you're fixing this problem, then this problem, and right. So there's so many things that we could talk about, but I know, Kim, I saw you come off of mute before we went on break. So I'd love for you to just share whatever was coming up for you.
Oh gosh, my transition out the military was terrible. It's no different than anyone else's when it comes to the quality of care that you receive afterwards, the quality of life that you're able to access. Like the military literally sent me they gave me a one-way ticket to send me to my last known address. When I got to Puerto Rico, I ended up homeless because my family disowned me and told me that I was a disgrace for getting out of the military. So that was like such a shock to me. So I ended up living with my sister afterwards, and my first civilian job was Longhorn Steakhouse. When I realized it was very hard for me to adjust talking to people all over again that weren't military, and like the terms that I use, the language, excuse me, sorry about that. I have really bad signal here. Just talking to people, trying to have a conversation with people, like to this day I still say copy. But it was very difficult for me to talk to people and not bark orders. So me being a server wasn't the best idea. And then they said that I was too pretty to have janitorial responsibilities, that my face was needed up front. So I said, you know what? Yeah, I don't think this is the right fit for me. I'd rather go. And from there, I worked little dead-end jobs, went into the technical field, really found my purpose once, I navigated through the civilian healthcare system, and then going back and being relentless with the VA and saying, hey, I am a veteran. It doesn't matter what my DD 214 says. I am a veteran. Like, you can't tell me otherwise. I went through all the training. I built things with my team. I went to all my drills. I did everything that I was supposed to do as a soldier. How dare you not call me how dare you not recognize my time in service? Like, I signed the contract too. I signed my life over just like the next person that signs up for any military service. And after a 10-year fight, finally, they were like, oh, no, you're not a humanitarian. You're a veteran. There was a law that had passed, and they just basically changed everything. And it was the right timing to try again with the military and fight them for my benefits and for my rights. And not only that, but I helped other people in a similar process. I have my best friend. She is active duty military, and she reported her abuse. She told her command. She told, all of her SEOs, the people that were in charge of her, and they disregarded her. They didn't believe her. They put her in a medical hold, which, in my opinion, shouldn't have happened, because that made things worse, if anything. And she really started to think that she in fact was going crazy. But when she went backwards, she went through her memories with me, and we spoke about it. And I said, no, Joy, you were literally abused. Like, no, that's not right. That shouldn't have happened. I'm sorry that happened, but this is what you could do. These are the people you need to talk to. These are the documents that you're going to have to sign. And it was like, I just pulled out all of the things that I remember doing myself and telling her, no, if you want things to work in your favor, you got to do this, this, and this. There's a lot of hoops you got to jump, but baby girl, pick up your face from the floor. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Don't show them that you're weak right now, because anyone who's ever gone through this, they feel the same way. They feel weak. They feel embarrassed. They feel shame. But that's nothing to, sit there and dwell about, because that's not going to serve you any good during your process. You can cry after, but right now I need you to sign those documents. I need you to serve these papers. I need you to talk to these people, and you'll be fine. And she did. They lifted that bar so quick. I told her, look, God showed you favor and grace. God will always have your back. When you're doing the right things, God is right freaking there, ready, willing, and able to go to war for you. I said, you put everything that you were supposed to do in a timely manner. You did everything you were supposed to do. Now just sit back and watch how God works. And boom, she was able to get stabilized. She's good now. She doesn't have to move for another year. She doesn't have to worry about the roof over her head or her special needs son that we both take care of. Like, no, she didn't have to worry about any of that anymore. And I am so proud of this woman. She is nothing but resilient and brave, and by far one of the best sergeants I have been able to see grow.
Amazing. And thank you for sharing that. And I think Evan, you're the only one that hasn't kind of chimed in, and I don't know if you want to or not here, or if there's anything coming up for you.
Yeah, and hearing each individual stories and then going through and coming around where it's like everyone had that bad experience. I did not. My transition out of the military, especially with the units that I was a part of, being a cop and a sharpshooter and, doing Army missions. I was deployed with, I did 4 deployments altogether, and I even did Hurricane Katrina. So seeing different types of atmospheres and deploying with each other actually helped us. And only because I know that I'm deploying with 200 of my closest friends, and we stayed in touch, and we call it Safe Side. So we even got the Safe Side hat going on. But with our Safe Side brothers, especially with technology now, one thing that guided us through, especially within the transition getting out, was staying in contact with one another. So we all have seen combat. We've all were a part of that type of thing where I was on convoys, I was doing air marshal duties, I was doing sharpshooter and sniper missions where I would be out in the middle of, Basra or Baghdad or all these with me, my buddy, and the security guy. That was it. And there's just us 3 in the middle of nowhere, and my closest QRF was, maybe 20 minutes away. So how do you survive? How do you take up with that? And you're basically relying on each other. Well, the cool part about us and our unit is that we trained together. We deployed together. We did everything together, whereas normal basic units wouldn't do those things. And you would take 2 people from this unit, 2 people from this unit, put them together. You get 3 weeks of training before you actually go get deployed. Well, that's harmful for them compared to me, where 200 people in our unit would deploy, train, live, fight. We always talked about how you could go to any bar in Valdosta, Georgia, where I was stationed, and you can definitely see other members of your unit there. And that if any one of those guys got into a bar fight, you sure as well better believe other members of your unit are going to join in because they see you, they understand it. So getting out of that, you were able to still talk to people. I'm Facebook friends with everybody. We do what we call is our blue buddy check system, where we do buddy checks every now and again. Or if someone, we did 4 suicides in our unit and 2 people just passed away. So I have 6 deaths out of just that past unit. And we always start restarting the conversation again, revisiting back your partners and everyone else who you talked to before. And so it was good on the aspect of I'm transitioning out of military life, but that just means I don't have to wake up at 6 o'clock every morning and put on a uniform, and I can still talk to the same guys that I deployed with. I can still talk to the same people as in my unit. For me, when I got out, I had a daughter at that same time frame. So it literally was put up or shut up. And what is it that you're going to do? So going back onto the resilience training and things that I was taught, and then I was teaching others and teaching airmen as they were coming into the military, it's like now you got to now be more mindful of your surroundings. Do some mindfulness techniques, making sure that you're going for your ABCs and your consequences of your actions, of what it is that you're going for. So therefore, if you see certain behaviors that's going out there that's different from civilian life to military life to civilian life, can you change your behavior and understand, you know what, this is not a military mindset anymore, but I can still use the same skills and the same tactics and the same things that I can do that I learned in the military in the civilian lifestyle. I find it funny that like my girlfriend makes fun of me because I still roll my underwear and then my t-shirts are still folded nicely. I mean, I did 10 and a half years where I was completely organized and I can set up a go bag in 20 minutes. And some people in the civilian life doesn't understand that. And so how do you transition back into there? Well, you can never leave what you did in the military. And I don't expect anybody to completely go cold turkey about what they did in the military and try to get it to transition to the civilian life. But the idea is looking at yourself, taking a step back and going, you know what, this is my new lifestyle. This is the new things of what we got to do. I became a bartender and made that a career. And how can I grow a bartending business and make it to be a career? Well, it's cool because then I could be adaptable. Well, what else was adaptable? Well, I was adaptable in all the missions that I was a part of. I had to be adaptable within my military life. They made me think outside the box instead of just getting focused in on one thing. How can I get across some different things that's out there, different influencers that's coming in? How do I take those and manage myself so that way I can present a better aspect and present a better me? And those things I learned with the military. And I transition it now into my business, and where other bartenders are like, wow, that's something we never thought of. Because right now, especially in the civilian life, it's like a lot of people just want to be hand spooned and, hand fed all this stuff and carried in. It's like, no, because if anything was to really go off again and you put all these civilians back into a wartime, or, how can they handle the stress and the unknown that's supposed to come, and how do you adapt over those things? There's no skills that normal civilian people don't have, but the military does. The military does have those skills, and they give it out to those people if you were able to look for it and be a part of it. Now with me, because I'm with the VA almost daily, the VA pays for all my medical, the VA pays for all my insulin and pump and everything else that I need with them. I don't see that aspect of, the hard transition of coming out from military service into civilian life, because the military is still taking care of me. I might not put on a uniform every day and I'm not getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning, but I'm still taking whatever the military has to offer. I'm a military retired vet, so I still go shop at Lowe's because they got the military discounts. I still go hang out on base and do the BX and the commissary and do all those different types of things because it's still out there. I just don't have to put on a uniform every day. And that's how my mindset is. I'm still technically in the military because I still live that type of lifestyle and to those core values that we were taught. And I support all my veterans. And I support everyone who's still in there. And again, with technology and communication devices that have grown, I've seen a guy who me and him went through boot camp all the way through until I got out. We were the same places, the same deployments and everything else. And now he's retiring as a chief. And it makes me so happy to understand that he went through it all to retire at the max. That doesn't make me somewhat sad that I couldn't join and, be side by side by him. Yeah. But yet I also understand that my body turned off, my body shut down, and the military couldn't take it anymore. So fine, I'm doing something else, and I diverted and I adjusted my lifestyle based off of what my Met TC is, what we called it in the military. What are the extra surroundings that's in the extra influences that's around me that I have to adapt to, so I can know that I can live a great life here on this earth, because you only get one. So I kind of do that whole put up or shut up type of thing. And it's really what's guided me through it, and making sure that I'm doing the right skills to make sure that I can adjust and deal with the stress that comes within my life.
Yeah, I mean, the different perspectives, right? Like, that's why I wanted to have everybody kind of chime in, because there are different perspectives, and it may be hard on one person and it might be easy, and it might be, this community of people that you are still in contact with. So I love that you gave the flip side of that. And I do want to kind of shift it a little bit. Allison, I saw that you came off mute, so I'll give you a second and then we'll shift into something a little bit different.
Yeah, I had a question for Evan, and then also just wanted to highlight some of the things he was talking about. Where did you get out of the service? Are you still in Georgia?
No, so I went from Georgia, where it's a continuous response unit. We flew everywhere. I did probably over 2 years, for 4.5 years of being there at Georgia. I did 4 deployments, Hurricane Katrina, and then I was on continuous response. So we would, within 24 hours, get on a plane and go secure something. I was in Egypt and just random places all across the world. And then
where did you go when you got out?
Minot. So then I got stuck at Minot doing the nuclear missile security up there, and where pretty much you're on a 9-day rotation where you're 4 days in the missile field away from your family. You can't see nobody. 2 days of training on base. So the day before, 4 days in the field, 1 day after reconnaissance, and then 3 days off. And then your 3 days off, you could do whatever you wanted there. And then that was just that constant cycle back and forth. And then eventually I made the tactical response team, or the SWAT team there, where we flew helicopters, and I just got to fly doing nuclear convoys and things like that.
Well, I wanted to highlight something Tammy mentioned about identity, and then what also Evan is talking about. He had a smoother transition because he had that sense of belonging and sense of purpose. That for him, he was very fortunate that was a seamless transition, because many veterans lose that sense of belonging and that sense of purpose, and that's where the crisis happens. And so it's awesome to see that Evan had a different experience, because he had that continuum of maintaining a sense of purpose and being able to use his military skills and transition those rather easily. One of the things that used to break my heart that my Marines would say was, when they're trying to look for a job, well, I can't put killing on my resume. So there are, as you mentioned, Kelly, there are so many variations and so many stories and so many different experiences of veterans getting out. But I think that sense of identity, sense of purpose, and sense of belonging are really, really critical in terms of suicide prevention and finding peace.
Well, and real quick before you move forward, Kelly, and in addition to that, Evan, I trained Master Resiliency for 6.5 years while I was in the Army as well. Lovely program, loved it to death. But a lot of those skills, they work unless you're trapped in your own thoughts, and then it's great for a peer support program. But when you lose your family, and you're not personal family, but your military family, and now you're forced to transition into another realm, it makes things really hard. And sometimes, I don't know who said it earlier, but someone said, when you're in your own head, you're in the most dangerous place in the entire world. And one thing that we get stuck in the military is analysis a lot of times. And we can also take that. Remember the word catastrophizing? Well, guess what? It's a thing. Yeah. So there are many ways to look at this. And so, yes, there are a lot of things we learn in the military about resiliency, but they're not always transferable when you're completely down.
Absolutely.
If I could throw one more ingredient in here. One of my favorite theologians, his name is Hans Urs von Balthasar. He's a 20th century theologian, and he surveys 2,500 years of Western intellectual tradition, going back to the pre-Socratics, Greek philosophers, Plato, Aristotle, all the way up through Augustine, the middle periods, into modern contemporary. And he explores this root metaphor of the world is like a theater. So if we set the stage, being in the military is like, it's like being an actor. You have this role, whatever the role is that you play in the military. And what's essential to this metaphor of life like a stage, life like a movie, is there's a fine line between me, my I, like the core of my identity, and the role that I play. So for some people, like the I and the role, I mean, I'm the actor, and they can be really aligned, and you transition out, and you can maintain that sense of identity. Trauma, one of the things it does is it fragments. So if I'm ashamed of the role I've played in the military, if I feel guilt, moral injury, if I'm traumatized, if I'm physiologically dysregulated, I have to cast that role off. I'm done. I got to get rid of it. Burn the uniform. I have to find who I am, really, which leads us into this existential meaninglessness. Who am I? All these questions. What, Allison, where you're getting at?
Yeah, there's so much with identity, right? Like that could be a whole nother show that we just talk about that component on its own. Absolutely. I love seeing the different lenses of where we're looking, right? And how we've had different experiences, which that's human. We're all human, right? And we have different experiences. And so we're going to go to our last quick sponsored break. But once we get back, I'm going to throw a little loop in here, and we're going to talk about a couple other things. So we'll be right back after this quick sponsored break.
8 million people die by suicide in the world each year.
One person dies due to suicide every 40 seconds. Have you ever felt completely alone?
Like your life doesn't matter.
You are not alone. Call the National Suicide Lifeline at 988.
Hope and recovery is possible.
You can help too.
With only $19 a month, you help us save lives through mental health and suicide prevention education.
Scan the QR code or go to makementalhealthmatter.org to sign up as a warrior for mental health today.
Hello, this is Steve Ramona with the TV show Together We Serve, Fridays, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on E360 TV. Together We Serve.
Hi everyone, I am Sinead from Brador. I'm from Johannesburg, South Africa. Please join me in my Power Hour every Sunday, 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time on E360 TV. Mwah!
Hi, Laura Cross, your host for Mindful Mondays every Monday at 1 p.m. Central Time, where you can embark on a transformative journey of self-care and ultimate happiness. Tune in to the Voyage to Vitality channel on the Achieve TV network. Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross. Be there, be mindful, and join us on E360 TV.
And like that, we're back from another break. If you happen to be just tuning in to the Empowering Hope Veterans Day special, thank you so much for watching. All these lovely faces that I have on the screen, we're playing Hollywood Squares, not really, but we're talking about the important conversation as related to military life, the transition back into civilian life, and then our experiences, whether they were military or we have family members that were in the military, and then really having that open, transparent conversation around mental health and suicide prevention and all the good things as related to having an open, honest, transparent conversation. And I said before we went into the break that I was going to kind of shake it up a little bit, because I know there are some really amazing and positive things. And as Evan was talking about earlier too, is that we all have different experiences, and not all of the transition from military into civilian is bad, but we really have to have this conversation about community and connection and having the support behind whatever that transition is. And it has been researched that community and connection are those two things that truly help save lives, whether we are talking about mental health, we're talking about substance abuse, or we're talking about suicidal thoughts. Community and connection are the things that make us whole as humans. And that is just part, and we were kind of talking about identity, and that could be a whole nother conversation, right? But I want to also transition, because we're coming to the second half of the hour. I have added in, so one of my board members, Scott, he has joined us. So thank you, Scott, for joining. I want to give you the opportunity just to share a little bit about your story and your experience as related to military. And then I'm going to shift it around a little bit and ask more specifically, like where you guys are at today and what you're doing. And I know some of you have all talked about that a little bit, but I think that's a really important part of your story. So, Scott, I'm going to let you share a little bit about you.
Well, thank you for having me on. So I enlisted at 17 years old back in 2001. I was in boot camp August 27th of 2001. We all know what happened a few weeks later. So that was an interesting time frame. I ended up active duty, and then another about 5 years as a contractor. I've served from the South Pole in Antarctica to Saudi Arabia to Afghanistan and everywhere in between. Definitely had some travels, which was pretty amazing overall. And my little brother enlisted a few years after I did. He just retired about 7 months ago from the Air Force. I was Air Force as well. I don't know if I mentioned that. As a senior master sergeant. So he is now out. And it was obviously an interesting time frame of serving, and unfortunately, I've lost far more brothers and sisters in arms to their own hand and their own actions than I have in combat or experienced or seen, right? And that's a main reason why I'm now a board member on Kelly's Make Mental Health Matter organization, nonprofit, is because there's just such a huge disconnect with community and being able to talk about what's going on. I've had my own PTSD issues in the past. I've been, seeing people. I've been getting treatments, whether, it's ketamine treatments or seeing a counselor talking about it, going, or even just being a part of the community of helping out others, because helping others has helped me. Story. It's just sad how the things I've seen in the past. One of my best friends, he was Army. His twin brother was Navy. Their little brother Shane was Marine Corps, and I was Air Force. So it was always fun getting together and competing against each other. We go to the gym and compete or play ball or whatever, right? Well, Shane was the youngest one, and he did 2 tours in Iraq. He got blown up once, recovered, got shot, recovered, and then they medically retired him. He goes back home to Oklahoma and he killed himself. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Well, thank you for sharing. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people that choose to end their life. And we have, the 22 a day, right? Like if you think about, I don't know where exactly that came from, but I know it was a number at one point in time. I know that it's actually a lot more at this point. But I think the thing and why they started it was to just bring more awareness to what we need to help, especially with veterans and military or the military community, right? All because of all the things that we have been talking about today, all of the reasons that we as society can come together to form those connections and make this a better place for everybody to have a community that can support them. So much like we've been talking about the ranch, and I know with Evan, like bartending, and I'm going to have like JJ talk about what he does, and Tammy and all the things. So that's where I want to transition and shake it up just a little bit, because we have about 40-ish minutes left, but I want everybody to hear what you guys are doing now today and how that has been a part of your story, because all of you do very unique things that help in the world in general, but also in the veteran and military community. So I'm gonna actually start with Tammy. I'm gonna go with you first, if you want to just share a little bit about what you do now and how it's been a part of your story.
Sure. So I am a business and lifestyle strategist, and I help people build out for respect and results. And I come at it from a place of personal leadership because, as veterans, I feel like, we think differently and we have these superpowers, and how can you really tap into that? And so there for a long time, I hesitated on pulling the Marine Corps into my business, but I realized like that's what shapes me. And so to be able to take people, whether they're a veteran or a civilian, and really tap into those strengths and start to use that so that these people can create their own significance. You don't have to wait for that title. You can become a leader. And especially nowadays with social media, like you can step up and help people in a way that matters to you. And so, yeah, that's what I'm doing today. And I love it. I do a lot with different charities still. And one of them also is Team Rubicon. It was formed by 2 Marines, and they do disaster response. And that was a place where I found a camaraderie after 20 years of being out of the Marine Corps for the first time that actually felt like that. So I always encourage people to volunteer for that as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm going to go next. Evan, you're my next box in my screen.
Let me work on that unmute button. So I own a business called Mix and Shoot, hence the sharpshooter aspect of my day. So I kind of, again, put the military core values and whatnot into my personal business. And I, on a day-by-day basis, throw parties and private events to help anybody celebrate something in their life. So that's kind of where I pushed my experience to, is more through bartending in the service industry. I created the alter ego, the resilient bartender, on how to help people within the service industry, not just veterans in the military, that's separate, but even the people now in the service industry who are dealing with more addictions and like gambling and drugs and alcohol, and then trying to get them through tough times within their own personal lives, because the majority of people in the service industry are civilians who are not part of any military background or whatnot, trying to find that family that we talked about, find that community where everybody who's been a bartender or a server, there's your community. And then how do you get through that? There's your new community. And then they have their tough times. They're trying to figure out their own life because they're young 20 to 33-year-olds who don't have a true direction of where to go, but they think and they love this fast money that comes in the service industry. But how do you invest that money? How do you get through your stressors when it's a busy Saturday night? How do you not flip out on a customer because they asked for no pickles on the burger and pickles came on the burger or something like that? So I kind of switched from being resiliency with the military and put it towards the service industry in running private businesses and events and helping people celebrate times of their lives, and then also helping the service industry out with getting through tough times and kind of giving them more of a direction of where to go within their lives.
Yeah. And I know with bartending that, and as talking about the mental health space too, when in classes that I took for psychology, we actually had a whole scenario about being a bartender, because oftentimes you're like the only person that they have to talk to in those moments. But I love that you added like the core values into your business too, because we do, as a bartender or in the service industry, as if any of you have been in there, you know that you end up being the counselors, you end up being the therapists, or the people that people can talk to and bounce ideas off of. So
yeah, I make that same joke where it's like, yeah, I'm your big brother, I'm your dad at points in time. I can also be the granddad and offer you some great wisdom. I'm your counselor. I know your wife's name. I also know your girlfriend's name. I know, like, it's just funny how you make all these different type of things, because they want that bartender, that person behind them, to help them get through their situations. Granted, it might be through alcohol, and so that's another thing too, especially with alcohol abuse. Maybe we don't need to be going that route, and try to push them onto something else to help them get through whatever it is they're going through. But people will come out and try to just voice, or they want to voice what's going off, or release whatever's on their chest, and that bartender is literally that ear that they can lend to. And how do you become a good bartender? You just listen to your customers and your clients that's sitting down and just want to express themselves. Fine, come express it at my bar.
Absolutely. All right, I'm gonna go to Allison.
All right. I love what you're doing, Evan. I was a server for 7 years. So I am currently working as a trauma-informed coach and consultant. So I work with individuals and organizations to try to promote trauma-informed cultures, as well as promote the model of care that we started at the Veterans Ranch, particularly supporting veterans like Robert and Gabriel. And I've been working with a female corrections officer down in Oregon who wants to start a similar model for teen girls. I also do continuing education for clinicians and present at universities and different types of educational settings, trying to promote alternative holistic models of care for veterans, because that's what we did at the Veterans Ranch. I think the VA, the government, is limited, the modern medical model, in what it can do. It can certainly help in some ways with some symptom management, but I think we need more conversation about post-traumatic growth. And as you mentioned, Kelly, community and connection. And that's the core of what the Veterans Ranch is about. I'm also writing a book about my journey as a military family member, as a trauma therapist in the VA system, in the medical model, and then the 10-year long but amazing journey of starting a nonprofit from scratch with no resources, with a bunch of vets with PTSD, which was a lot of fun. So anyway, yeah, that's what I'm doing now. But my favorite thing is supporting other veterans who want to start something like the Veterans Ranch.
Amazing. And I'm gonna go over to Kim, because I know your connection goes in and out. So I'm gonna go over to you.
I'm doing my best. Oh my gosh, you can only do the best with what you got, right? So, gosh, where do I start? When I got out the military, I realized that there was a lot of work that needed to be done in the civilian world. So throughout the time that I spent working on myself, I decided to help others, not only with my skincare business, Kimara Organics, but also with my neuro-linguistic programming skills that I had acquired. And I love helping people process their trauma, because when I'm with that person, I literally can see the aha moments. I can see them connecting the dots in real time in their heads. Our brains is like a map, and it's a beautiful one. We can go backwards, we could go forwards, we could go in any direction, north, east, west, south, however we choose. And we still come back to the point of, okay, this happened to me. I can acknowledge it, I can process it now, and I can move on. So that way I can attain the rest of my goals and the rest of the things that I want for my life and how I want to live. In doing NLP, I'm able to help people on multiple levels. I'm able to give them, you know, the peace of mind and that helping hand, provide them with that space for them to be comfortable and be able to undo the multiple layers of protection that they've had to apply to themselves throughout the years in order to just stay barely grounded, you know? And that sense of identity that we lose along the way when we allow people to traumatize us, when we put ourselves in, you know, situations we wouldn't imagine putting ourselves in normally, like if we were thinking right. But sometimes we get used to being abused on that level. So the people we invite in our lives, they continuously, you know, gravitate towards us, and we're just like, oh my gosh, I can't get anywhere. I can't get around these people. I keep being hurt. I keep feeling this. I keep feeling that. It's a trauma response. We're used to that. But when we accept that, when we can move past that and want the things for us that are positive, that are going to help us in the long run to grow and to succeed, we go, damn, I got tired. I just woke up from that nightmare. Let's go. Let's go. I love helping people reach that point of clarity and mental stability. Like, that's what I strive to do in my counseling services. And that ties into my skincare because I'm all about self-care, putting yourself first, and really helping people feel good, look good, and actually be healthy. I love that all-in-one, you know, healthcare system that I can provide as a whole. You know, self-care, you know, physical care, mental well-being, being able to support yourself on multiple levels in the inside and out. You know, people can wear whatever facade they choose to put on in order to protect themselves. But at the end of the day, we have to live with that choice of choosing that said facade. We have to live with making that choice, and we can either block our blessings, or we can finally take that facade off and integrate with the community and continue to help others, continue to make impacts on multiple levels. And not only, you know, just the people that you know, perfect strangers, random people, like that's your community too. And it took me a very long time for me to want to get into crowds and want to speak more and want to share my story. Like, it takes a lot for people to get out of their shells, and I'm just glad to be a part of a community where I can provide those services and share my experience with others.
Amazing. And shout out to NLP. I'm also an NLP coach, so I love NLP. All right, I'm gonna go over to Gabriel.
Thank you. Well, I mentioned an hour and a half ago, about St. George Counseling Clinic, which is my personal private practice. And I work on a weekly basis, 12 to 15 military veterans, combat veterans, Navy, Army, Air Force. And that's great. So I'm teamed up with the VA, and the VA is doing a great job. It's limited. It's doing a great job in some areas. It could do better in other areas. This is an area with a community care network. It's a great resource. It's limited. So here comes into play is the nonprofit that's being formed is the St. George Center. And the St. George Center, the motto is it's a matter of life and death. And this is kind of the first time speaking about this publicly, part of the model will be providing hospice care to Vietnam veterans. That's going to be a whole aspect to the business that's far beyond my capacities as a licensed mental health counselor. But that, in many ways, is inspired by the death of, he was not a veteran, the death of one of my best friends, Timothy Becker. And when I went to his funeral It started with caring for his body. So often in our society today, somebody dies and the whole process is outsourced to strangers. What happened with Timothy was the family was involved in carrying his body, brought into the church. We stayed up all night chanting psalms. And then the next day went through the funeral process. His wife was involved. His friends were there. It was absolutely beautiful. Part of the model of the St. George Center is working through how to not only care for dying Vietnam veterans, but also to invite other veterans into the process to care for them. So that's where it's a matter of death. It's also a matter of life. So the other aspect of providing trauma resources to enhance, let's say, for instance, we're in Kitsap County, this is where this will be. It's one of the most beautiful places in the world. We're right here on the sea, on the Puget Sound, surrounded by beauty. One of the aspects of the St. George Center is having resources, opportunities, a 50-foot sailboat. So if anybody wants to donate me a 50-foot sailboat, do it. Do it today, right now, before this offer expires in 30 seconds. Take veterans out, teach them how to sail, giving them opportunities to belong, to be in friendship and community with one another, to see some orcas and seals in a beautiful area, that's all part of healing. That's all a part of the restoration of life. So the St. George Center is in development, looking for an excellent board of directors and lots of money. So Kelly, I'm accepting donations now for the next 30 seconds.
Right now.
Right now.
Amazing. I'm like, I want to come see some whales. Like, that's one of my, anyways. Awesome. I'm gonna go to Robert next.
Thanks, Kelly. So I'm kind of in a little bit of a transition right now. As I mentioned earlier, I moved from Oregon. I'm now in Wichita, Kansas. But I'm kind of doing something different. Is I go back to the ranch as a consultant. I'm helping them right now with their ag program, trying to further it. I'm also working with the vet who took over my position as the farm supervisor, teaching him what I know as a consultant role, just doing it on my own time, just really trying to help them keep advancing. And at the same time, I've been here in Wichita, I'm trying to get together, put everything together, start my own nonprofit of a ranch similar to what we got out in Oregon. So I've kind of been doing both, and I'm also trying to work on too is, ag is my background, but there's so much to ag that there's a lot of veterans out there that get into it, but they need help of how to go about doing things, how to get started, how to not financially destroy themselves. It's something a lot of people have done. So I kind of starting to put it out there for veterans that if they're starting and they need help, I'm willing to come in and help them in a consulting space, help them get started. But not only that, by doing that, I've also learned the stories of them and help veterans progress, not even just in the ag world, but for themselves. So it's kind of a win-win with doing both of them at the same time. So I've kind of been working on all that at once. It's a lot. I'm also going to school too. I'm trying to progress my ag background on the business side because it was something I lacked for a long time. I farmed my whole life, but the business side is completely different. And so I'm working on all that at once. It's been a lot, but it's keeping me going. It's keeping me in that community like we've all been talking about. So I'm still out there in the community. I'm still helping veterans at the same time. And that's ultimately what matters to me is, I'm medically retired. I don't have to do any of this, but I do it because it's what keeps me going day in and day out by going and helping people and helping veterans succeed where, they might be struggling. And that's a big deal to me. Before I get off here is, I know Kim's kind of in and out, but what she did is, I think ultimately one of the biggest sacrifices I've ever seen in a veteran. I was sexually abused, and seeing that she stood up for sexual harassment is very big to me. A lot of people think of males, it doesn't happen, but it does. It's in females, it's in males. And it was something that really drew me down for a long, long time. I never admitted it until 2022 when I started my progress. So, Kim, I got to give you props for what you did. That was truly amazing, standing up for sexual harassment. Thank you. I know I ended your career, but thank you very much. And just, it's kind of where I'm at right now.
Oh, I had a blast fighting them. I really did. I really did, because I knew in my heart I was making the right choice. I knew that for the past decade, I was right. I knew that I was in the right, standing up for what I believed in. And in return, I was able to help other people too. So it was an honor to have served, no matter what the circumstances were or why I got out. Like, I loved it. I loved being in the military. I loved the camaraderie up until that camaraderie turned into, good gosh, okay, now everyone's against me because no one wants to go up against the NCO. Okay, I got it. No problem. It's fine. I was like, you know what? I don't blame you. You're all standing together. It's just one person. That's fine. I was set out for something greater, like, and I did it, and I won, and I'm happy.
Yeah. I love, and I actually have a nonprofit that I can also connect both of you into, and they do specifically that as far as defending and trying to change sexual abuse in military. So I'll connect you both too. I'm gonna go to JJ.
Oh, okay. Well, I currently do probably more than I have time for, so it won't take me long to tell you what I do. But so first of all, I own Victory Leadership Coaching. I teach new manager training. A lot of the stuff that a lot of us have said about camaraderie and leadership and all that stuff. I teach new managers what they need to know before they get too deep in their role. It's all leadership and soft skill focused. It's something that I found in the 3 different jobs that I had before I left and started my own business, that it doesn't happen. We all get that when we're going through the ranks in the military, but they don't get that oftentimes in the civilian world. And so I thought it was important. I went out there and developed a program and then started teaching it. In addition to that, I'm coming out with a new one. Evan, you and I were both resiliency trainers. You're not allowed to teach that in the civilian workforce because UPenn has, they have licensed that only for the military. So I worked with a buddy of mine. He's actually my co-host on my podcast, Warrior Leadership, and we developed a program that teaches similar things, and it's an entire certification course. We're calling it the Warrior Leadership Coaching Certification Course, and that's what it does. It teaches higher level coaching techniques that can be used for peer coaching. It can be used in organizations to be taught to each other, the same way that the Master Resiliency Program is being taught into the military to teach people these resiliency techniques and peer coaching techniques. It's a higher level executive sort of a course. In addition to that, coaches can use that if they don't have tools to get people to the next level. It's goal focused. In addition to that, therapists can use it as an additional tool in their toolbox to instead of just helping people with their trauma, if they don't want to move that on to a coach later on as part of the treatment plan, they could incorporate those tools into their therapy and make that part of the process. So there's that. In addition to that, I volunteer. I'm actually building, it's called the Johnson County Veterans Network. I'm building a monthly networking event that other people have done in different areas throughout Iowa and the Quad Cities. And we're going to be bringing employers together. We're going to be bringing veterans who are looking for work together and any veteran who wants to network with other veterans. We find a place local in town. We have a corporate sponsor to buy the food, and we have the businesses speak for what they need. As far as hiring is concerned, we have the veterans come in there and say what their skills are. And our hopes by the end of each one of those programs is that a veteran who didn't have a job will be one step closer to the opportunity to find work. And I'm also a member of the board of directors for a nonprofit over here called the Veterans Liberty Center. And we focus a lot on helping people that have suffered through PTSD and substance abuse. We have some peer coaching programs over there and groups to help people get through that stuff. And so that's my high level overview of everything that I'm doing. And plus I've written 2 books.
Hey.
Don't know what to do with all my free time.
I know, right? You got to fill it somehow. And as a reminder, you can go back and watch JJ's episode 2 and the future one that we're going to have. I'm going to go to Scott.
Well, hello, and sorry I'm actually doing a lot of Veterans Day stuff with friends today, with fellow vets. But thank you for having me on. So where am I at today? Well, I am not trained in anything. I have no certifications in any sort of coaching, unlike y'all, but I do have a common denominator with all of you: giving. What helps me personally is giving. My own PTSD, anxiety, depression is giving back, being honest, being real. It was 3 years ago, roughly, that I started being really honest with myself and the world of where I'm at and my struggles in life. You know, the good, the bad, the ugly, and posting it publicly. And there's been a flood of people. I know this is kind of a Veterans Day thing, but it's a flood of people, veterans, not, doesn't matter, that have reached out, tell their story, to talk, to have somebody listen. That's the most important thing you can do, is be someone that can listen to others and love on them. Whether you pray with them, you cry with them, you laugh with them, doesn't matter. They just want to tell their story. And it came about probably 3 years ago, middle of COVID. One of my reliefs is my motorcycle on the side, like a hobby. I teach people how to ride, but I love to get out in the mountains and ride outdoors, camping, hiking, you name it. And this particular weekend, so every time I came back from Afghanistan, I did like 5 deployments. Every time I came back, I would kiss my wife. I hadn't seen her in months. Said, hey, great to see you, love you, miss you. Bye, I'll see you in a week. And she knew how important that was for me, because I would just disappear in the mountains. I was by myself. My dog was the only other mammal alive. Friends, nobody, just me. And this one particular weekend, I took my truck and my dog and my dirt bike I had at the time. And I saw the camp host at this campground had a disabled veteran plate. And I started talking to him as I was checking in. Tiny little campground in the middle of Colorado. TV plate. And I said, hey, dude, come on over, check out my rooftop tent on my truck. It's pretty neat, because he was asking about it, and we'll talk. So he comes over a couple hours later. We start chit-chatting, and he tells me this deep story of his experience in Nam. He was basically a UDT guy, Navy SEALs before they were really called Navy SEALs at the time, and how he was behind enemy lines on a boat. For those who have seen Apocalypse Now, kind of like that routine. And his boat, a rocket or propelled grenade, whatever, hit the boat, blew it up. He woke up, he doesn't know how many hours later, on the side of the shoreline, barely alive, realized the boat blown up and all of his people he was with were dead. And he had about 100 miles to hike out of enemy territory back to safety. And he just got really deep in the, and he got really emotional. I got emotional, like I am now, sorry. Because I could just tell, like, how hard it was for him to tell the story. And I said, hey, brother, can I give you a hug? He says, yes. I gave him a hug. We cried. And he says, you're the first person I've told this story to since 1972, when he had to tell the story to the NCIS, the investigators, for the whole why everybody died. And that's when, because I told him my story, I started telling my story to everybody and be like, hey, I'm not okay sometimes. I have, whatever the issues are going on, in life. We all do. And it's okay. It's okay to not be okay, essentially is what it is. And it's being there for others has helped me tremendously, personally. Being someone that can just listen. And so just anybody watching this, all I encourage you is you don't have to have degrees in this or that or this training. I do recommend these trainings and coaching programs. You can just help out even more. But just be someone to listen to, tell your story, be real, be vulnerable, and don't be afraid of it. Just be you. And that's how you can give back to others.
I love that. And you perfectly summed what I was about to ask everybody too, is kind of and we're gonna go sort of quickly around. But what is that like? I'm gonna steal this from another show host that is on here, that she always asks about your golden nugget, the one thing that you want to provide to the audience. And Scott, I know you just perfectly summarized, but is there any other key components that you want to add to what you just said?
As far as what? What's your
what is your golden nugget that you want to give to the audience?
Love unconditionally. You don't have to agree. You don't have to be similar. I love the whole phrase, opinions are like assholes, pardon my French, but we all have one, they all stink. So don't care what you think, what you believe, what your politics are, what your religions. I've had deep conversations when I've lived in Saudi Arabia with Muslims, where we cried together. Like, you don't have to agree to love on others. So just be open, real, and accept whether you agree or not. That's my biggest thing, is just love unconditionally. Just be there.
Love it. Thank you. JJ?
I love the love unconditional thing, but I think that as people, we need to be non-judgmental and, show vulnerability. If you want to create a community, I think part of creating trust in that community is being vulnerable. A lot of times we like to pack all of our stuff up and then shove it down inside of ourselves. But if we're vulnerable with other people, they'll trust us enough to be vulnerable back with us. And I know nobody really likes those mushy conversations, but I think that, it's important to have with people that you want to have in your inner circle, and you're going to build stronger bonds. And I think that's just my one big nugget.
Love it. I love mushy conversations personally, but Kim.
This thing, man. Oh, where'd it go?
You're good. I can see you and hear you. What is your golden nugget that you want to give?
I would definitely say unity. The more people are able to get out of their shells after processing their traumas, the more people they're able to connect with outside of their own world. Because we'll always have two separate worlds: the world that already exists that we live in, and the world that's inside of our heads. And when we can differentiate between the two after a traumatic experience, it's on and forward after that. So that's definitely my golden nugget.
Thank you. And Robert.
Yeah, I think my golden nugget is reaching out that, nobody's alone. We're not alone. No matter what you did, no matter what you've been through, if you're struggling, pick up that phone. I know it's the hardest thing. It was hard for me. And for everybody just to love each other, because I can't tell you how many times I've picked up the phone and it's somebody and I just sit there and listen. And they just talk. That's all they need. And that's one of my biggest nuggets is, no matter what, whoever it is, just listen to them. Let out what they need to let out. And know that none of us are alone, no matter what. We're all here for each other.
Love it. Gabriel?
My mind's settling on the antidote to despair is hope. Despair is the cursed conviction that the way things are now will never get better. And if it's never going to get better, I might as well kill myself. Hope is the blessed conviction that things will get better. When we're trapped in trauma, despair, we get stuck in despair. How do we find hope? Well, here's where we need to lean on others. When I can't have hope, I need to find people around me who I can lean on. And to start simple, plant a garden, go to the gym, go cuddle a cute puppy, right? Something that can kind of be like, something's better than it was 2 minutes ago. That's the seed of hope.
I love that. I should have come to you last with our empowering hope, but that's good. Allison.
I'm going to steal from something Scott said that I love and that I think is so important, which is that it's okay to not be okay. And we live in a culture, particularly with social media, it's made it worse, that we're supposed to live this great, happy life. And every time we open the computer or look at our phone or go into any kind of social media, turn on the TV or a movie, we see what we're supposed to be living like. And so that just adds to the stigma and of ourselves feeling so much more horrible because we're just reminded that we're supposed to be something different. I got married for the first time last year. My husband, because of my own childhood trauma, I couldn't tolerate making that commitment. My husband is a combat veteran. And the first year of marriage for both of us, for me especially, has been really, really hard. And I had a friend and everyone's like, how's it going? How's the newlywed life? I'm like, it's effing hard. And sometimes I don't want to do it. And I come from a family history. Kelly and I have talked about this before. My grandmother, my maternal grandmother ended her life. My stepmother ended her life. Another close family member has had suicide attempts. And so for me, with what Scott was saying, I have to remind myself it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to find the nugget is find the person you can unravel with. Find the person you can tell how ugly it is. Find the person that you can say, I really don't want to effing do this anymore. I'm not going to, but find the person that you can just be 100% real, raw, and down to the nitty gritty with. You need those people to be there and to call and to hold you.
I love that golden nugget. And we only have a couple minutes left, so I don't want to shorten for Tammy or Evan, but I also want to say it is also okay to be okay. So we need to add that vocabulary into our conversations too. But I want to go to Tammy and then Evan, and we have like 3 minutes.
So I just think that no matter what you've been through, like at the core of it, like we've all been instilled these beautiful traits that are really honorable and these values, and that you can lean on those and to uplift others, and you show up because of who you are and not because of who somebody else is. And I feel that that's our opportunity to, when we lift other people up, we're uplifted.
Love it. And Evan?
I'm actually going to go a little bit back to what Gabriel was saying ahead of time. It's like talk about how things are shameful. My nugget is don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed that you helped defend this country. Don't be ashamed about the things that you did while you were in the military. Those are, again, I'm from a different aspect from some of the other viewers on here, but we did what we had to do to make sure that we came home safe and alive and back to our families. And don't be shameful for anything that you did out there. The idea is to find a way to get up and get over it, and then to find a way to move on with your life without being and holding back to things that happened in the past. Because you can't change it. Things have been there, it's gone through, and find a way to just grudge through it by being resilient and able to grow and get on pretty much with your life and to enjoy what else that life has to offer for you. and I just looked up the stats. There's 17.9 million veterans today in the country. 17.9 million vets that there's an ear for, that there's somebody there to talk to, and that we all went through whatever it is that we went through together. 17.9 million of us out here on a day-by-day basis, and there's 17.9 million people that don't need to be ashamed of what they did for their country.
I love that. And we're like past time. So I don't want anybody to get cut off. And I appreciate all of you being here today. This is Empowering Hope, a Veterans Day special. I hope you got something out of it. No matter what, if you get a chance, come check out my show. We're on the Achieve TV channel on E360 TV at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. But thank you all so much. I appreciate you.